The fluorescent lights of St. Catherine's Hospital hummed like 1,000 dying bees. Marcus Reid had learned to tune them out years ago, the same way he'd learned to tune out the beeping monitors, the crying families, the smell of disinfectant trying to mask death. He walked the third-floor corridor at 11:47 p.m., his boots making soft thuds against polished linoleum. His security uniform was navy blue, worn thin at the elbows, the fabric soft from too many washes. The name tag, M. Reid, Security, hung slightly crooked. He'd stopped straightening it 2 years ago. Nobody looked at security guards anyway. Marcus was 39 years old, but his hands looked older. His dark brown skin bore scars that ran along his knuckles and up his forearms, the kind you got from holding people together when they were falling apart. Most people at St. Catherine's didn't know his story. To them, he was just the quiet guy who checked doors, helped wheel patients to radiology, brought water when the nurses were drowning in paperwork. He preferred it that way. At midnight, he stopped by the pediatric waiting room. His daughter, Amara, sat in the corner with her homework spread across 2 chairs. She was 9 years old, 4th grade, with thick natural hair pulled into 2 puffballs on either side of her head. Her skin was a warm, medium brown, lighter than his, and she had her mother's eyes, wide and intelligent and always noticing things other people missed. "Baby girl, you almost done?" Marcus asked, crouching beside her. Amara looked up from her math worksheet, pencil poised. "3 more problems, Daddy, then I can draw." He smiled, kissed the top of her head. Her hair smelled like the coconut oil he'd worked through it that morning before her braider canceled last minute. "Take your time, I've got rounds." "Daddy?" "Yeah, sweetheart." Mrs. Chen in 304 asked if you could check on her husband. She said he's scared of the dark. Marcus's chest tightened. Amara had been coming to his night shift since she was 6, since the after-school program closed and he couldn't afford a sitter who worked until 6 a.m. She knew half the long-term patients by name, brought them drawings, remembered their stories. "I'll check on him right now," Marcus promised. She beamed and went back to her homework. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Marcus had been at St. Catherine's for 4 years. Before that, he'd been Staff Sergeant Marcus Reid, 68W Combat Medic, U.S. Army. 3 tours, Afghanistan, Iraq, back to Afghanistan. He'd stitched wounds under mortar fire, talked dying 19-year-olds through their last breaths, held intestines inside bodies while helicopters landed in dust storms that turned day into night. His hands had saved 43 lives. He'd counted. The Army had decorated him. Silver Star for valor after he'd run through. Enemy fire 7 times to drag wounded soldiers to safety. Purple Heart for the shrapnel that still sat lodged near his spine, too dangerous to remove. Army Commendation Medal, with V device for the night he'd performed an emergency tracheotomy with a ballpoint pen and a pocket knife. But none of that mattered after the phone call. "Mr. Reid, there's been an accident." His wife, Simone, had been driving home from her nursing shift. A drunk driver ran a red light doing 70 in a 35. She died on impact. Amara, 3 years old, had been in the back seat. Broken collarbone, concussion, nightmares that lasted 2 years. Marcus left the Army 6 months later. Honorable discharge, family hardship. He came home, became both parents, took the first job that let him keep Amara close. Security guard, night shift, $16.50 an hour. It was enough, barely. Their apartment was a 1-bedroom in East Oakland, 4th floor walk-up. Amara slept in the bedroom with the purple comforter and the glow-in-the-dark stars Marcus had stuck to the ceiling. He slept on the couch, his long frame folded into cushions that smelled like fabric softener and exhaustion. Every morning, he walked her to the bus stop. Every evening before his shift, he made sure she had dinner, usually something simple. Rice and beans, spaghetti, chicken thighs when they were on sale. On Fridays, if tips from helping people load groceries had been good, they got pizza. She never complained, never asked why they couldn't afford the field trips or the new iPad the other kids had. She just drew pictures of superheroes and wrote stories about girls who saved the world and told Marcus every single day that he was the best daddy in the universe. He lived for that. For her. At 1:23 a.m., Marcus was near the south stairwell when his radio crackled. "All units, we have an incoming trauma. ETA, 2 minutes. Major MVA, critical condition. Security to ER entrance now." Marcus's training kicked in before his brain caught up. He moved. He took the stairs 3 at a time, pushed through the double doors into the ambulance bay. Cold November air hit him first. Then he heard the sirens cutting through the night. The ambulance skidded to a stop, rear doors flying open. 2 paramedics jumped out, already moving fast. Female, mid-30s, single vehicle collision, major head trauma, possible internal bleeding, BP 80/50 and dropping. They pulled the gurney out. Marcus saw her. She was small on the stretcher, her body barely making an impression. Designer clothes, what was left of them, torn and soaked with blood. Her hair, natural and usually styled in an elegant twist based on the magazine covers Marcus had seen in the waiting room, was matted to her forehead with sweat and rain. Her dark brown skin had gone ashen, gray at the edges, but he recognized her immediately. Victoria Ashford, CEO of Ashford Global Tech, 34 years old, Forbes 30 under 30. First black woman to take a tech company. Public before age 30. Worth an estimated $2.3 billion. Her face had been on the cover of Time magazine 3 months ago. The headline, "The Ice Queen Who Built an Empire." Now she looked like she was dying. "Where's the doctor?" the lead paramedic shouted. A nurse ran out, her brown skin flushed with panic, her scrubs askew. "Dr. Martinez is in surgery. Massive pileup on the 880. We've got 2 more doctors en route, but they're 15 minutes out. She doesn't have 15 minutes. The paramedic's voice cracked with something Marcus recognized, the sound of someone watching a life slip away and being powerless to stop it. Victoria's eyes fluttered open, unfocused, pupils blown wide, shock settling in like fog. Her lips moved, barely a whisper. "Please." The nurse leaned closer. "Ma'am, help is coming, just hold on." "Please." Victoria's voice broke, tears cutting tracks through the blood on her face. "Just make it fast. I don't want the pain. Please, just make it fast." Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. He'd heard those words before. In Kandahar, in Fallujah, from soldiers who knew they weren't going home, who just wanted the agony to end. He stepped forward. "Let me help." The paramedic turned, saw the security uniform, started to shake his head. Then Marcus pulled off his jacket. The fluorescent lights of the ambulance bay hit his forearms. There, in faded black ink against dark brown skin, were the tattoos. Numbers. Unit designation. Medical Corps insignia. The mark of a combat medic who'd served in the hell of war. The paramedic's eyes widened. "You're 68W, 3 tours, trauma specialist." Marcus's voice was calm, steady, the voice that had talked soldiers through amputations without anesthesia. "I've got her. Get me gloves and gauze. Now." He draped his jacket over Victoria's chest. She was shaking, her body trying to preserve heat it didn't have. Then he moved to her side, his hands already assessing. Pulse at the carotid. Thready, weak, maybe 140 beats per minute. Respiratory rate, shallow, irregular, around 28. Skin, cold, clammy, mottled. Capillary refill, 4 seconds. She was in decompensated shock. "Ma'am, I need you to look at me," Marcus said, his voice cutting through her panic. Victoria's eyes found his. Brown meeting brown. Hers were glazed with pain and terror. "My name is Marcus. You've been in an accident, but I'm not going to let you die tonight. Do you understand me?" She stared at him. Something in his voice, that absolute certainty, that unshakable calm, made her want to believe him. I'm scared, she whispered. I know. But you're going to be okay. I promise you. You're going to see your sunrise tomorrow. Marcus's hands moved with practiced efficiency. He palpated her abdomen, rigid, distended. Internal bleeding, likely splenic rupture. He checked her chest, decreased breath sounds on the left. Possible hemothorax. The nurse handed him supplies. He worked quickly, applying pressure dressings to the visible wounds, starting an IV line in her right antecubital vein, elevating her legs to shunt blood back to her vital organs. Talk to me, he said, keeping her conscious. What's your name? Victoria. Her voice was fading. Victoria, that's a beautiful name. Stay with me, Victoria. Focus on my voice. Where were you going tonight? Home. From a board meeting. Each word cost her. Okay, tell me about your company. What do you do? Tech, software, artificial intelligence. That's incredible. You must be brilliant. He checked her pupils again, still reactive but sluggish. Victoria, I need you to keep talking. Tell me something good, something that makes you happy. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, I can't remember. Marcus's jaw tightened. His hands never stopped moving, checking, adjusting, monitoring. Then I'll tell you something, he said. I have a daughter. Her name is Amara. She's 9 years old and she draws pictures of superheroes. Every night she tells me about her day, every single detail, even the boring parts. And you know what? Victoria's eyes flickered toward him. That's my favorite part of every day, listening to her talk about lunch trades and playground arguments and which book she's reading. That's what being alive is about, Victoria. The small things, the boring things, the things that don't make magazine covers. Her hand moved, trembling, reaching out. Marcus took it. His hand was warm, calloused, steady. Hers was cold and shaking, but she gripped him like he was the only solid thing in a world that had tilted sideways. Don't let go, she whispered. I won't. The automatic doors burst open. Dr. Martinez rushed in, still in surgical scrubs. Blood spattered across his chest from the previous emergency. What have we got? Marcus gave him the rundown, quick and clinical. Blunt force trauma, suspected splenic rupture, possible left-sided hemothorax, decompensated shock. I've got 2 lines running, pressure dressings applied, legs elevated, BP's holding at 85/55, pulse 138, respi rate 26. Dr. Martinez stared at him. Who the hell are you? Security. Bullshit. Marcus didn't argue. She needs surgery, now. Dr. Martinez looked at Victoria, at the monitors, at Marcus's hands still holding pressure on the worst of the wounds. Then he nodded. Get her to OR3. Let's move. They transferred her to the hospital gurney. As they started wheeling her away, Victoria turned her head, using what little strength she had left. Her eyes found Marcus's one last time. Thank you, she mouthed. He nodded. Then she disappeared through the surgical doors, and he was alone in the ambulance bay with his jacket on the ground and blood on his hands. Marcus bent down, picked up his jacket, shook it out. There was blood on the collar. He'd wash it later. A young nurse, Sarah, he thought her name was, stood nearby, watching him with wide eyes. That was amazing, she said. Where did you learn to do that? Long time ago, Marcus said quietly. You saved her life. Marcus pulled his jacket back on. Dr. Martinez saved her life. I just kept her alive long enough for him to do his job. He walked back inside, washed his hands in the staff bathroom, and returned to his rounds. At 2:15 a.m., he checked on Amara. She was asleep in the pediatric waiting room, her head pillowed on her backpack, her math homework complete and tucked neatly into her folder. Marcus sat down beside her, careful not to wake her. He watched her breathe, steady, peaceful, alive. His hands were still shaking. The sun rose at 6:47 a.m., turning the Oakland hills gold and pink. Marcus clocked out at 6 AG, changed into his street clothes, worn jeans, a gray hoodie, work boots with the sole coming loose. He woke Amara gently. "Come on, baby girl, time to go home." She rubbed her eyes, yawned. "Is it morning already?" "Yeah, sweetheart, it's morning." They walked to the parking lot. His truck, a 2008 Ford F-150 with 187,000 miles and a cracked windshield, sat in the back corner where it always did. Amara climbed into the passenger seat, buckled herself in. Marcus started the engine. It coughed twice before catching. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "Did something happen last night? You seem quiet." Marcus glanced at her. She was watching him with those two smart eyes, seeing straight through him the way she always did. "Just a long shift, that's all." She didn't push. She just reached over and held his hand while he drove. Their apartment building was a squat concrete box that had been beige once but was now mostly gray. Marcus parked in the street. The building's lot cost an extra $50 a month, and they climbed the 4 flights of stairs. Inside, the apartment smelled like the cinnamon air freshener Marcus bought at the dollar store. The couch where he slept had a blanket folded neatly at one end. The kitchen was clean. He'd washed the dishes before his shift. "Go get some sleep, sweetheart. I'll wake you up at noon for lunch." Amara nodded, dragged herself to the bedroom. Marcus heard the door close softly. He sat on the couch, his body exhausted but his mind racing. He kept seeing Victoria's face, the fear in her eyes, the way she'd said, "Please, just make it fast," like she'd given up, like she'd decided dying was easier than fighting. He'd seen that look before, on soldiers, on civilians caught in crossfire, on his wife's face in the hospital right before they told him there was nothing they could do. Marcus leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and pressed his palms against his eyes. He'd saved her. Victoria Ashford was alive because he'd been there, but he knew how this worked. She'd wake up in a private room surrounded by expensive flowers and lawyers and PR people, and she'd go back to her life, the boardrooms and the magazine covers and the empire she'd built, and he'd go back to his. That was fine. That was how it should be. Heroes didn't need thank you cards. They just needed to know they'd done the job. Marcus lay down on the couch, pulled the blanket over himself, and closed his eyes. Sleep came hard, but it came. Victoria Ashford woke up to beeping. Her head felt like someone had taken a sledgehammer to it. Her ribs screamed with every breath. Her left arm was in a sling, IV lines running into her right. Sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows. She was in a private room, luxury hospital suite, the kind that cost $5,000 a night. She blinked slowly, trying to remember. The board meeting. The argument with Thomas, her COO, about the acquisition. Leaving angry, distracted, getting in her car, rain on the windshield. The curve coming too fast. Then, nothing. No, not nothing. A voice, deep and steady and impossibly calm. "You're going to see your sunrise tomorrow?" Victoria turned her head carefully. A nurse, a young black woman with kind eyes, was checking her vitals. "You're awake. Good. How's your pain? 1 to 10? 7, Victoria rasped. Her throat was raw, probably from the breathing tube during surgery. The nurse adjusted her morphine drip. "That'll help. You're very lucky, Miss Ashford. Another 10 minutes and—" She didn't finish the sentence. Victoria's memory was coming back in fragments. The ambulance bay, the panic, the feeling of her life slipping away like water through her fingers. "There was a man," Victoria said, "before the doctor. He helped me." The nurse smiled. "Oh, you mean Marcus?" "Yeah, everyone's talking about it. He's security, but he used to be an army medic. Kept you stable until Dr. Martinez got there. You wouldn't be here without him." Security. The word felt wrong in Victoria's mouth, like calling a surgeon a janitor. "Where is he?" "Home, probably. His shift ended at 6. He's got a little girl. So he goes straight home to get her ready for school. A daughter. Victoria closed her eyes. She'd almost died last night, and a security guard, a man who probably made less than her executive assistant's executive assistant, had saved her life. The door opened. Her assistant, Dominic Laurent, rushed in with her phone, tablet, and a laptop. He was 32, black, impeccably dressed even at 7 a.m., and the only person on her executive team she actually trusted. Victoria, thank God. His voice was tight with emotion. I've been calling the hospital every hour since. I'm fine, Dom. You're not fine. You almost died. Victoria looked out the window. The Oakland skyline glittered in the morning light, all glass and steel and money. What's the situation? Dominic hesitated. The board is in emergency session. Thomas called it. They're discussing succession protocols. Victoria's jaw tightened. I've been unconscious for 8 hours, and he's already trying to take my company. Victoria, get me in front of a camera. Today, I need to show them I'm alive and in control. You can't. You just had emergency. Surgery. Then get me on a conference call. I don't care. I'm not letting Thomas steal everything I built. Dominic sat down, ran a hand over his face. There's something else. The media knows about the accident. They're asking questions. Who was in the car with you? Whether you were impaired? Whether... Tell them it was a single vehicle collision. Wet roads. No other factors. And the person who saved you? Someone leaked that a hospital employee provided emergency care before the doctors arrived. They want to know who. Victoria's fingers tightened on the hospital blanket. She could see the headlines already. Billionaire CEO saved by minimum wage security guard. The optics would be terrible. The narrative would shift from her strength to her vulnerability. Her competitors would smell blood in the water. Thomas would use it against her. No names, Victoria said. Her voice was cold, automatic. The CEO voice that ended discussions. The medical team handled everything professionally. That's the statement. Dominic looked at her for a long moment. Victoria, this man saved your life. And I'll handle it privately. I don't need this becoming a media circus. Dominic stood. I'll draft the statement. He left, but the disappointment lingered in the room like smoke. Victoria lay back against the pillows staring at the ceiling. You're going to see your sunrise tomorrow. She'd seen it. Golden and beautiful through her penthouse windows every morning for the past decade, but she'd never actually looked at it until now. 3 days later, Marcus was walking past the executive wing on his rounds when he saw her. Victoria stood near the elevator with Dominic talking in low, urgent tones. She was dressed in an expensive silk blouse and tailored pants despite the bandages visible beneath. Her natural hair was pulled back in a sleek bun. She held herself like nothing had happened, like she hadn't begged for death 3 days ago. Their eyes met across the hallway. Victoria froze. Marcus nodded once, professional, neutral, and turned to continue his rounds. Wait, he stopped, turned back. Victoria limped toward him, leaning slightly on a cane. Dominic stayed by the elevator, watching. You're Marcus, she said. Yes, ma'am. I wanted to thank you for what you did. Just doing my job, ma'am. There was a pause, an awkward, heavy silence. Then Dominic stepped forward. His voice was quiet, careful. Ms. Ashford, the PR team suggested it might be better if we kept the details of that night private. The media narrative is complicated right now. Marcus's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes shifted. Victoria looked at him, then at Dominic, then back at Marcus. I appreciate what you did, she said carefully, but I'd prefer if you kept that night between us. I don't need complications right now. I'm sure you understand. Marcus studied her face. He'd held her hand while she begged for death. He'd promised her she'd see the sunrise. He'd given her his jacket, his skills, his absolute focus when she had nothing left. And now she was asking him to disappear. "Wasn't planning to talk about it," he said evenly. "Good." Victoria's voice was crisp, businesslike. "I don't like owing people." Something flickered across Marcus's face. Not anger, not disappointment. Something sadder. Something that looked like recognition. "Then don't, ma'am," he said quietly. "Just live better than you were that night." He turned and walked away, his footsteps steady on the polished floor. Victoria stood frozen, Dominic beside her. Those words hit her harder than the steering wheel had, harder than the tree, harder than anything had hit her in years. Just live better than you were that night. "We should go," Dominic said gently. "Your car's waiting." Victoria didn't move. She watched Marcus disappear around the corner, watched the man who'd saved her life walk away like she was nothing. Because to him, she was nothing. Just another person who'd almost died and then forgot what that meant. Victoria couldn't sleep. 3 weeks had passed since the accident. Her ribs had healed. The stitches were out. She'd returned to work, crushed Thomas's attempted coup in a single board meeting, and secured the largest acquisition in Ashford Global's history. She should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt hollow. Every night she lay in her penthouse, 5,000 square feet of marble and glass overlooking the bay, and stared at the ceiling. The silence was suffocating. No one called to check on her. No one asked how she was really doing. She had everything and nothing. Just live better than you were that night. The words haunted her. On a Thursday evening, Victoria did something she'd never done before. She went back to St. Catherine's Hospital. Not as a patient, not for a meeting. She just went. She found Marcus on the 3rd floor, checking a door lock. He wore the same worn uniform, moved with the same quiet efficiency. "Mr. Reid." He turned, surprised. "Ms. Ashford, I need to talk to you." Marcus glanced around. "I'm on duty. Please." Something in her voice made him stop. She looked different, smaller. The armor was cracking. They walked to an empty conference room. Victoria closed the door. "I can't stop thinking about what you said," she began, "about living better." Marcus waited. "I don't know how," she admitted. Her voice broke slightly. "I built this company from nothing. I was 19 years old, black, female, broke. Everyone told me I'd fail, so I became hard, cold. I stopped letting people in because people were liabilities, weaknesses." She sat down, shoulders sagging. "That night, when I crashed, I wasn't trying to die, but I wasn't trying to live either. I was just existing, going through motions. And when you asked me what made me happy, I couldn't answer because I don't remember the last time I felt happy." Marcus sat down across from her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you were right. I wasn't living. I was surviving, and I don't want to do that anymore." "So, what do you want?" Victoria looked up at him. "I want to learn how." If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Over the next month, something unexpected happened. Victoria started showing up at the hospital during Marcus's shifts. Not to follow him, not to interfere. She just came. At first, Marcus was wary, but Victoria didn't act like a billionaire CEO. She sat in the cafeteria with Amara, helping with homework. She brought coffee for the night nurses. She listened to patients tell their stories. One night, Marcus found her in room 412 with Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman with stage 4 cancer. Victoria was reading to her. A romance novel Mrs. Chen loved but could no longer hold herself. Marcus stood in the doorway, watching. When Victoria finished the chapter, Mrs. Chen patted her hand. "You have a kind heart, dear. Don't let the world make you forget that." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Later, Marcus walked her to her car. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "I wanted to. She reminded me of my grandmother, the only person who believed in me." Victoria's voice was soft. She died when I was 23. I was so busy building the company, I missed her last 6 months. I told myself I'd make it up to her by succeeding. But success doesn't bring people back. Marcus stopped walking. No, it doesn't. They stood in the parking lot, the city lights reflecting off the pavement. My wife died 4 years ago, Marcus said quietly. Drunk driver. I was deployed. I wasn't there when it happened. Wasn't there to say goodbye. Amara was in the car. She survived, but she had nightmares for 2 years. Screamed every time I tried to put her in a car seat. Victoria's hand moved to her mouth. Marcus. I left the army because I realized I'd been saving strangers while my family needed me. And I swore I'd never make that mistake again. He looked at her. That's why I'm a security guard. That's why I work nights. So Amara never has to wonder where I am. You gave up everything for her. No, she's everything. The army was just a job. Victoria felt something shift inside her chest. This man, this extraordinary man, had sacrificed glory, recognition, a prestigious career, all for his daughter, and she'd asked him to stay invisible. I'm sorry, she whispered, for what I said that day, about keeping quiet. I was protecting myself, my image, my company, and I didn't see you. Not really. Marcus met her eyes. You see me now? Yes. Then that's enough. 2 weeks later, Ashford Global hosted its annual technology summit at the Moscone Center. Victoria was the keynote speaker. Marcus wasn't supposed to be there. It wasn't his world, wasn't his scene. But Dominic had called him personally. She's been different since the accident, Dom said. Softer, more human. And I think it's because of you. She needs to see you there. So Marcus went, wearing his only suit, a dark navy he'd bought for Simone's funeral and hadn't worn since. Amara came with him, wearing a yellow dress Victoria had sent. Not expensive, just pretty, age-appropriate, with a note. For a young lady who reminds me why kindness matters. The summit was massive. 3,000 attendees, tech giants, venture capitalists, politicians. Marcus and Amara sat in the back, feeling out of place. Then Victoria took the stage. She looked powerful in a tailored charcoal suit, her natural hair styled in an elegant crown of twists. The crowd applauded. Thank you for being here, Victoria began. This year's summit theme is Innovation Through Humanity. But I want to start by telling you about the night I died. The room went silent. 6 weeks ago, I was in a car accident. I should have died. The doctors weren't there. I was bleeding out, terrified, and I begged someone to just make it fast, to end the pain. Marcus felt Amara grip his hand. But a man stopped me, a security guard, a single father who was just doing his rounds. He took off his jacket, covered me with it, and told me I was going to see the sunrise. Victoria's voice cracked. His name is Marcus Reid, and he's the reason I'm standing here. The cameras swiveled, searching. Someone spotted Marcus in the back. Spotlight found him. Marcus stood slowly, Amara beside him. Victoria looked directly at him. Marcus is a decorated combat medic. He saved lives in war zones. He gave up that career to be there for his daughter every single day. He works night security for $16.50 an hour. And when I tried to thank him privately, to keep him hidden because I was afraid of what people would think, he told me something I'll never forget. She paused, tears streaming down her face. He told me to just live better, and he walked away. The crowd was transfixed. I've spent my whole life building this company, building wealth, building power, but I forgot to build a life. Marcus reminded me what matters, not innovation, not disruption, not market share. She looked at Amara. What matters is showing up for the people who need you. What matters is being brave enough to be human. Victoria stepped away from the podium, walked down the stairs, through the crowd. She stopped in front of Marcus. I'm sorry I tried to erase you. I'm sorry I didn't see your value. And I'm sorry it took me 6 weeks to say what I should have said that first night." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Thank you for saving my life. All of it." Marcus's throat tightened. "You're welcome." The crowd erupted in applause, but Victoria wasn't done. "I'm announcing the Marcus Reid Foundation for Emergency Medical Training. We're starting with $50 million to train civilians in underserved communities as first responders, because the next time someone's life is on the line, they shouldn't have to wait for a hero. The person next to them should already know what to do." Marcus stared at her, overwhelmed. Amara tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, she named it after you." Victoria knelt down to Amara's level. "Is it okay if I try to be your daddy's friend?" Amara studied her seriously. Then she nodded. "Okay, but you have to like hot chocolate with marshmallows. That's our thing." Victoria laughed through her tears. "I can do that." Over the next 6 months, Victoria's life transformed. She stepped back from daily operations at Ashford Global, appointed a new CEO, and devoted herself to the foundation. She and Marcus worked together, designing training programs, visiting communities, teaching civilians how to save lives. But more than that, they became friends. Real friends. Victoria learned to braid Amara's hair. Badly at first, the parts were crooked, the tension uneven. But Amara was patient, and Victoria kept trying. Marcus taught Victoria to cook soul food. Greens, cornbread, mac and cheese. They cooked in his tiny apartment kitchen, laughing when she burned the first batch, celebrating when she got it right. Victoria came to Amara's school play, sat in the back with Marcus, cheered louder than anyone when Amara delivered her 2 lines as townsperson number 3. Marcus went to Victoria's board meetings when she needed support. Sat quietly in the corner, his presence steadying her. They never talked about what they were becoming. They just became it. One evening, 9 months after the accident, Victoria arrived at Marcus's apartment with takeout. But when he opened the door, his face was drawn, stressed. "What's wrong?" Marcus ran a hand over his head. "The landlord's selling the building. We have 60 days to move, and I've been looking, but everything in our price range is either too far from Amara's school or not safe." Victoria's mind raced. "How much do you need?" "It's not about money." "Marcus, how much?" He hesitated. First, last, deposit. Probably $6,000. But even then, it's just delaying the problem. We'll be month to month forever, one rent increase away from— "What if you didn't rent?" Marcus frowned. "What?" Victoria pulled out her phone, showed him a listing. A 3-bedroom house in a good neighborhood, walking distance to Amara's school. Backyard, garage, safe. "The foundation is buying properties for employee housing. This one's yours if you want it." Marcus stared at the screen. "Victoria, I can't. It's not charity. You're the foundation's director of training. You need stable housing. This is part of your compensation package." "I'm not the director." "You are now. $60,000 a year, full benefits, flexible hours so you can be there for Amara." Marcus sat down heavily. "Why are you doing this?" Victoria sat beside him. "Because you gave me my life back. Let me help you build yours." His eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to accept this." "Just say yes." Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who'd almost died in his arms. The woman who'd learned to braid hair and burn cornbread and sit with dying patients reading romance novels. The woman who'd become family. "Yes," he whispered. Victoria smiled. "Good." 1 year after the accident, the Marcus Reid Foundation opened its first training center. It was a beautiful building on the edge of Oakland, state-of-the-art equipment, classrooms, simulation labs. Over the entrance, carved in stone, "Because heroes shouldn't have to wait." The grand opening was packed. Press, dignitaries, community members, families whose loved ones had been saved by foundation-trained responders. 37 lives saved in the first year. 37 families intact because someone knew what to do. Marcus stood at the podium with Amara beside him. She was 10 now, confident, brilliant, wearing the bracelet Victoria had given her. Be brave, little healer. I'm not good at speeches, Marcus began. I'm better with heartbeats. The crowd laughed gently. But I want to say this. A year ago, I saved someone's life. What I didn't know was that she was going to save mine right back. He looked at Victoria, standing in the front row. Victoria taught me that accepting help isn't weakness, that building something together is stronger than building alone, that family isn't just blood, it's the people who show up. Amara tugged his sleeve. He bent down. She whispered something in his ear. Marcus straightened, smiled. My daughter wants me to say that Miss Victoria makes really good mac and cheese now, and she's teaching her about coding, and she's the best almost mom she could ask for. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth, tears streaming. Amara ran to her, threw her arms around her waist. Victoria held her tight. This child who'd tested her, accepted her, loved her. The crowd was on their feet, applause thundering. But Marcus only saw two things: his daughter, safe and happy, and Victoria, finally living instead of just surviving. After the ceremony, they walked through the center together, Marcus, Victoria, and Amara. Daddy, can we get ice cream to celebrate? Amara asked. Absolutely. Can Miss Victoria come? Marcus looked at Victoria. She looked back at him. Something passed between them. Something that didn't need words. Yeah, baby girl, she can come. They walked to the parking lot. Victoria's driver was waiting, but she waved him off. I'll ride with you guys, she said. Marcus opened the truck door. The same cracked windshield, the same worn seats. But Amara climbed in the middle, Victoria beside her, and suddenly the truck felt full in a way it hadn't in years. They drove through Oakland as the sun set, painting the sky gold and pink and purple. Amara chattered about her day, about the science fair, about her best friend's birthday party. Victoria listened, really listened, asking questions, laughing at the kid logic. Marcus glanced over. Victoria caught his eye and smiled. At the ice cream shop, they sat outside on a bench. Amara got chocolate chip. Victoria got strawberry. Marcus got vanilla. Daddy, your ice cream is boring, Amara declared. It's classic. It's boring. Victoria laughed. She's not wrong. Marcus shook his head, grinning. I'm outnumbered. Amara leaned against him, chocolate on her chin. That's what happens when you have a family, Daddy. You get outnumbered. Victoria's breath caught. Marcus looked at her. Yeah, I guess that is what happens. The sun dipped below the horizon. The city lights flickered on. Amara finished her ice cream. Victor helped wipe her face, and Marcus realized something. This was it. This was the life he'd been fighting for. Not perfect, not wealthy, just real. Just full. Later, after they'd dropped Victoria at her penthouse, Amara asked, Daddy, do you think Miss Victoria will stay? Marcus pulled up to their house with the backyard and the porch light and the stability they'd never had. I don't know, sweetheart. I hope she does. I like her. Marcus smiled. Me too, baby girl. Me too. That night, after Amara was asleep, Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Thank you for letting me be part of your life. You and Amara are the best thing that ever happened to me. Marcus typed back, Your family now. That's not going away. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then, family. I like that. Marcus smiled, set down his phone, and lay back on his couch. But for the first time in 4 years, it didn't feel like a couch. It felt like a place to rest before tomorrow, before the next sunrise, because he'd promised Victoria she'd see it, and he'd promised himself he'd see it with her. And Marcus Reid always kept his promises. Epilogue. 2 years later, the Marcus Reid Foundation had trained 12,000 civilian first responders across 17 states. 89 lives saved. 89 families intact. Marcus was the director of training, traveling occasionally but always home for Amara's school events, always present. Victoria had stepped away from Ashford Global entirely. She ran the foundation full-time, worked with communities, remembered what mattered. And every fun day they had dinner together. Marcus, Victoria, Amara. Sometimes they cooked, sometimes they ordered pizza. Always they were together. On a fun day in November, exactly 2 years after the accident, they sat in Marcus's backyard. Amara was inside doing homework. The sun was setting. Victoria turned to Marcus. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "That night, when I begged you to make it fast, why did you promise me I'd see the sunrise?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Because I've seen a lot of people die, and the ones who had something to live for always fought harder, so I figured if I could give you one thing to hold on to, just one beautiful thing, maybe it would be enough." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "It was. You were." Marcus reached over, took her hand. They sat like that as the sun disappeared and the stars came out. Inside, Amara was drawing, a picture of 3 people holding hands. A man, a woman, a little girl. Above them, a sun rising. At the bottom, in careful letters, "My family." She colored the sun bright yellow, the people warm brown, and the sky full of promise. Then she took it to the refrigerator and hung it with a magnet shaped like a heart. Outside, Marcus and Victoria sat in comfortable silence, watching the night sky. Heroes don't stop saving lives. They just find new people worth living for. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story. David.